Let's discuss with NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard, Christina Greer, professor at City College of New York, and Susan Del Percio, Republican strategist and MSNBC political analyst. So thank you all for being here. Vaughn, explain to us why Trump is campaigning in this extremely blue district today.
So number one, he thought that he was going to have trial today in Manhattan, and so his campaign went forward with planning this South Bronx event. At the same time, Donald Trump has been obsessed with the idea that he can actually win the state of New York here in November, and we should note that back in 2020, he lost the state of New York by 23 percentage points. Lee Zeldin in the governor's race against Kathy Hochul, he did lose by just 5 percentage points, and so for Donald Trump, he sees polling that indicates that he's able to make some inroads, particularly with black voters. He received a record number for black voters of 12% in the 2020 election, a record for a Republican nominee in recent decades. At the same time, polling is indicating, some polls up to 20% of black voters suggesting they could vote for Donald Trump. But this is where it's going to be a little bit more difficult for him, because there's a difference between dissatisfaction with Joe Biden now and a reality that 5 months from now we're in a very different place, and being dissatisfied with Joe Biden and voting for Donald Trump. There's a big gap that, frankly, history has not provided, even in recent elections, even in 2022 midterms.
But even a little bit can make a difference, right?
It can, and here's what's really interesting. First, the Bronx elected its first Republican last year to the city council, the first one in 40 years. So just putting that out there, that a Republican won a seat for the first time in 40 years. And I'm not suggesting, by the way, Donald Trump's going to win New York. It's not going to happen, but it goes to a bigger issue for the Biden campaign. Donald Trump did 7 percentage points better in the Bronx in 2020 than he did in 2016. Biden did worse in New York City in 2020 than Clinton did in 2016. So the narrative that's out there that these communities are not getting the attention and that they probably should get from the Democrats if they want to increase turnout is very significant. And while Vaughn is absolutely right, Donald Trump's doing this rally not to win over votes, but because he thought, you know, it's a good press hit. Okay, fine. He can have that, but there is a message in the numbers for Democrats, not in New York City per se, but if it's on the margins, those swing states, it matters.
Well, this is the message coming from Congressman Richie Torres, who is in this specific district in the South Bronx. He says there is no greater enemy than Donald Trump to his district, and that his district will not buy the snake oil that Trump is selling. And here he was earlier on Morning Joe.
Donald Trump is so unpopular as to be radioactive. You know, he's even less popular than arsenic in the Bronx. So I'm confident that the Bronx is going to overwhelmingly support Joe Biden. If Donald Trump did not have a criminal trial in New York City, he would never be caught dead in the Bronx. And as far as I'm concerned, the only place in the Bronx where Donald Trump has any place being is Bronx Criminal Court.
Christina, do you agree with Congressman Torres there, or could Trump's visit help him make inroads in these voting blocs that have been more traditionally Democratic, like with black or Hispanic voters?
Right. Congressman Torres does have a point. I mean, the real reason why Donald Trump is going to the Bronx is to say to the Democratic voters of the Bronx, has Joe Biden been here? Right? You all keep voting democratically, but I'm the one who's actually coming to visit you. Now, he's not saying it's because I got to stay close to home, which home is the court, but he's also trying to, I don't think he necessarily thinks he's going to get black and Latino voters to vote for him. The strategy is to get them to abstain from voting for anyone on the top. And that's where it matters, not just in New York. It matters in places like Milwaukee. It matters in Detroit, you know, places where Joe Biden has less favorability. But also, we're in a moment where, as Vaughn said, we have some time, right? Joe Biden needs to make the case to black and Latino voters, and I should say black male voters. Black female voters tend to be completely immune to what the Republican Party is selling. But we always see black male voters voting a little bit more for the Republican Party than black female voters. But the real reason that Donald Trump wants this is to make sure he sort of suppresses the vote by black male voters in the sense that he's not expecting them to vote for him. Now, I will say, I don't know if New York is definitely a blue stronghold. All states are red states. We just have blue cities in red states. New York is the reason why Joe Biden didn't have unified government in 2022. We're the ones who lost the 4 members of the House who went over to the Republican Party. So, yes, it seems like a long shot that, you know, Donald Trump would ever win New York. But looking at those Lee Zeldin numbers in 2022, does make me realize that there are a lot more Republicans and dissatisfied Democrats in the state of New York than we'd like to admit.
And beyond, obviously, New York, too. And I've talked with voters, especially from the Hispanic community. There have been complaints that they don't feel really heard or seen, that they feel taken for granted by the Democrats. But let me turn to the other big political news that we have this morning, and this is an endorsement, the announcement from Nikki Haley about voting for Trump. Vaughn, she was really, really critical of Donald Trump during the primaries, and she's changing her tune.
Let's preface this, if we could, with the fact that Nikki Haley's already done this before. In 2015, she equated Donald Trump to being a kindergartner during the 2016 primary campaign, and then she ended up going and serving in his administration as UN ambassador. But this year, it went to the next level. She called him unhinged. She called him toxic. She said that the most harm he's ever possibly had is getting hit by a golf ball when he's sitting in a golf cart. She's called him chaotic, suggesting that chaos follows him. I don't want a president who is going to praise dictators. He's weak in the knees about Putin. She's questioned his memory. She has blasted the amount of debt his administration incurred. He took a shot at her husband when he was deployed overseas in Africa, and she went on to call it disgusting, awful comments. This is somebody in Nikki Haley here, though, who is understanding that the power structure of the Republican Party lies with Donald Trump. And last night, heard to the Hudson Institute saying that she would vote for Donald Trump. She said it because the Biden administration, her words, have been catastrophic. And so this is what we saw Ted Cruz do 8 years ago, Marco Rubio, right? If you continue to want to have a place of relevance in the Republican Party in the Trump era, you must maintain an allyship and at least be somewhat close to Donald Trump. And Nikki Haley, just like she did 8 years ago, is doing that here again.
Are you surprised by this about face, Christina?
Not at all. They all fall in line ultimately. And so, as Vaughn has clearly laid out, I mean, I was never surprised. It was only when would Nikki Haley fall in line and support Donald Trump? I mean, when you're dealing with so many people in a party who have no shame and they're following someone who has absolutely no shame, this isn't a surprise. I think not only will we see her support him and say that she'd vote for him, but we'll see her actually actively assist him in trying to become the next president.
She hasn't gone that far yet, but I do want to play what she has said to just really demonstrate the evolution. Susan, Vaughn quoted her quite a bit, but listen to her in her own words.
I will be voting for Trump. Having said that, I stand by what I said in my suspension speech. Trump would be smart to reach out to the millions of people who voted for me and continue to support me, and not assume that they're just going to be with him.
So she has previously called Donald Trump unstable, unhinged, said he wasn't qualified to be president because of his disrespect for the military and her concern over whether he could protect those men and women serving overseas. But, so I'm wondering, Susan, does she expect the people who have agreed with her in those previous comments and have voted for her for that reason to suddenly follow her lead and vote for Trump now?
Well, I believe that, especially after she suspended her campaign, the people who voted for Nikki Haley are the same small percentage, about 5% of those who voted in numbers-wise in 2020, who were Republicans against Trump. These were anti-Trump votes, not pro-Nikki Haley votes. And that's where she gets a little confused, I think. But what's also really important is to keep in mind is last week she had a donor retreat. She did not make that comment without running it by them and knowing her political future. So it seemed acceptable for her to get away with doing something like this with her donors. So she went ahead and did it.
All right. Thank you so much, Susan Del Percio, Vaughn Hilliard, Christina Greer. Great to see you all.